All right, it is, what is it, July 2nd, and that's hard to believe, really. Summer just seems to whip on by. This morning it was dark, and lots of humidity and lots of heat, Dan Alstrand.
Well, first off, happy belated Canada Day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We celebrated our country yesterday.
Yeah.
And then this morning we came into what felt like we were in the middle of wintertime. It was so dark.
It was really, really dark, but it's brightening up out there right now.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And humidity in the forecast, that was your lead story today.
Right.
Heat,
no,
right?
it's and heat warnings are in effect kind of to the west of HRM, not HRM proper because we're close enough to the water.
Yeah.
But like from Digby up the Fundy coastline all the way into Cape Breton, they're really gonna bake today with temperatures. Feel like temperatures like at 37 or something like that's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was off on Monday, which was nice. Visited my brother in PEI. Had a nice visit there.
Extra long weekend. You got a really generous boss, don't you?
I know, very generous. Thank you so much. You sat in for me.
I did.
And
I had a lot of fun.
And Sean Cleary was in here.
Yeah, Sean Cleary, and the bike lanes kind of dominated the discussion a little bit. Mr. Cleary is certainly a proponent of active transportation, and he's certainly a proponent of bike lanes, and is one of the cheerleaders that we get this thing done, I guess. Yeah.
And do you feel as though that Sean Cleary, no matter what the financials would look like, would be for Jed get it done no matter what?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to put words into Mr. Cleary's mouth.
Yeah.
But he seems to have a counter argument to all of the right or wrong, to all of the arguments that you've heard many times. We've been talking about bike lanes forever. Yeah. And I heard yesterday on, was it Monday?
Yeah.
It's weird. This week is weird.
I know.
He seems to have a counter argument to it. I think that he's fully on team bike lane at this point.
Yeah, I would say.
He said, and I don't know, you were away, he said that the biggest problem that we have with the bike lanes is that we're paying too much. This is what he said. I'm paying too much attention driving, and I don't see people in the bike lanes. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't see people in bike lanes. And he said they're not connected, which many people will agree with, that if they're connected, that they would be more well used because they don't go anywhere.
That's right.
But Mr. Cleary, Councillor Cleary said that once they're connected, we will be like other cities, and there'll be tens of thousands of people in the bike lanes, which I think a lot of callers on Monday took exception to.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that once they're connected, it will increase ridership. I think we would all agree with that.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how much it will increase.
And 5% of the roads budget being spent on a function that's being used currently by less than 2% of the population, I don't think sits well with a lot of people. Will we see tens of thousands of bikes? I doubt it.
Yeah. Why do you doubt it?
I think, and we addressed it with the councillors that were here. Geography, I think, plays a role into this, right? And I'm talking about the elevation of HRM.
Yeah, it's hilly.
It's hilly, and the answer to that was, well, electric bikes are kind of the change in the game, and I agree.
Yeah.
But electric bikes aren't inexpensive to buy, and most people that are listening to us right now that are enjoying maybe a long weekend can't fork over $2,000 for an electric bike if they want to take part. They're like me, and they'll be in the old school 10 gears, and that's all you got. And I live in Clayton Park, and I would easy come to work, right? But not connected right now, which is dangerous. I don't think I'd want to ride up most of Bears Road without a bike lane on it. That being said, going home would be quite a challenge for an old guy like me, right? Yeah. Took some calls from people that are active in the bike world, which was nice to hear, sort of a different perspective on it. Say that they believe that if we build it, they will come. But I still don't think that, at least listening to the calls that we took on Monday, that's the prevailing wisdom within HRM, at least from our callers.
Well, like you said, the weather as well. Once things get cold, I mean, that's gonna make a massive dent in ridership, in my humble opinion. I just think it will. I mean, you're gonna have your ardent people who will do it no matter what, but I think that's a small sample.
Councillor Cleary suggested to take a look at places like Sweden and to look at places like Finland, and I'm Finnish, so I'm familiar with it. And a lot of people in the urban areas in in Helsinki are 12-month-a-year riders, and they get a lot of snow. But I again with this on yesterday spent some time on YouTube looking at some videos to try and refresh. It's been a while since I've been there, but Helsinki is pretty flat, right? And it's the infrastructure's there. But again, I go back to, would you, and Sean Cleary said, well, you get studded tires, and I get it. Those big fat tires you can get. Yeah. But there's another additional expense that you're going to, right? And he told me, I think he said that it has saved me $14,000 a year if I rode my bike just on car payments.
How much?
$14,000.
Wow.
Because of car payments and those kind of things too, which is likely true, but I don't think I could give up a vehicle, excuse me, where I live, at least at this point, because, and I got some emails, obviously, from people that are like, well, yeah, I take my tools to work. How do I do that on a bike? Right? I got to bring my hammer or I'll get fired. Yeah. So I think the debate is going to rage on. I hope that when HRM gets this report back on the costs, that those in the elected positions take a real close look at that and take a look and weigh what that money could be better used for, or perhaps that is the best use of it. But at least we're going to get a number. There's all kinds of numbers floating around out there right now. 98 million, 80 million, whatever. The 40% that's left is going to cost an exorbitant amount of money because it's the hardest stuff to build. The Highway Traffic Act precludes us from using sidewalks in areas that we need to build bike lanes. Can we look at the Highway Traffic Act? Can we maybe widen the existing sidewalk a foot and make it multi-use? I think there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I have a whole lot of faith that staff in its current iteration is going to be able to come up with something that's going to appease all these questions, because staff was already developed the plan that was before council. So I just don't know that I have a whole lot of faith in a new version of staff report that's going to appease these concerns. Would be nice to get some 2025 numbers on it, with the cost of things going through the roof, and to lay it bare to everybody to see, and then maybe if maybe I'm off base, maybe it's money well spent. I don't know, but let the constituents see the numbers, and then let them help to formulate the councillor's opinion on it if they listen to their, as they say they do, to their constituents. I don't know where this is all going to go. Look, I just think you have people entrenched in two camps in this, and I don't see anybody moving on it, quite honestly. I think those who oppose it, I don't see any light bulb moment where they're going to say, oh, all of a sudden I think it's great. And conversely, I think people who are in the cyclist camp, I don't see them changing as well. I just see this as an extremely polarizing topic. Well, it has been, and has been for years, right? Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think that we're already into it. So, I mean, it's not like we're going to rip up the bike lanes that are in existence, right? So maybe they are. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like we're going to rip up the bike lanes that are in existence. And I think it does. I think it does make sense that we have something that's connected. I've seen a couple of examples. I came into the radio station yesterday for a bit, and with the least amount of traffic on the road that is a Canada Day, I got a chance to take a look, and there's a lot of things that happen, and then they just end. And for somebody that I've said I got rid of my motorcycle because I don't like driving an HRM, I wouldn't want to ride a bicycle in an unprotected lane. That being said, I don't ride a bicycle, so maybe I'm not the best judge of this. Well, for councillors in the outlying areas like David Hensby, and that's another thing, right? HRM's a big place. That's right. I think that if you're representing your constituents and you're looking at the money that's going into this, how realistic is it that people are going to be coming in from the Eastern Shore, or from St. Margaret's Bay Road, or Spryfield, or wherever? How realistic is that? I think you see some. I think you will. Remember Councillor Whitman used to ride in from Hammonds Plains every day. Right. That's right. Some, but enough to justify the expense. Right. Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I think that gets lost a lot when we have
conversations with Sean Cleary, who was District 9, and with Laura White from District 7 in the urban core areas that it kind of makes more sense. Yeah. But I think, and you don't have to go all the way out to Musquodoboit Harbor. Like, you go to Clayton Park, or go to Cole Harbor, or go to West Bedford, or somewhere closer to the city where people are commuting in. And that's quite a commute. Yeah, even if you have a protected lane, it's quite a commute. And if this morning was any example, how quick did that storm show up?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and you're going to ride in that torrential downpour?
Right.
I'm not.
That's right. And of course, motorized vehicles, e-scooters. I mean, these things fly. I mean, I don't know what their top speed is, but I saw one go by me today coming up on Chebucto. It was flying. Yep. And what about the rules surrounding that? I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed as well. What do you think?
Well, and that's it. And I think they would be part of a multi-use network. I know the bylaws changed. We got them off the sidewalks, or they're supposed to be off the sidewalks. And that's another issue that I think that we need stronger attention to, is enforcement of the rules that are already on the books. But yeah, they're in my neighborhood now. The rent-a-scooters are out there, right? And they're very well used from what I can tell. I don't know how much experience people have on them, and maybe know the rules or not. I know they have GPS locators on them and whatever.
I think inherently it's pretty dangerous when you look at it. Small little wheels, you're standing up straight and moving at high speed.
You gonna get on one?
Never. Never.
Right? I don't think
I think that they're an accident waiting to happen, quite honestly.
I can just foresee myself, and it's just because I'm a klutz. Yeah. That I'm skinning my elbows on that.
Yeah,
thing,
sure,
right?
sure. So again, active transportation, and you integrate people on a traditional bicycle, doing whatever top speed bicycles are, compared to these motorized. You mentioned the motorized bikes.
Yep.
And I just think that needs to be addressed as well. That we got to figure out how we're going to harmonize those.
And they do have some rules on the books. In doing some research on because I don't own one, but on e-bikes, the motors are I think they judge them or they classify them in watts in amount of energy. Right, yeah. And you have to have and the number's escaping me. I want to say 50, but I'm probably wrong. They have to be under 50 watts in order to conform to the city's rules. But again, I go onto Amazon or wherever, and you're going to find 150 watts, 170. So who's enforcing the size of these things, right? Yeah. I watched a guy on an e-bike go up Yonge Street here this morning, and you go through a green light and was keeping up with traffic.
Exactly.
Like literally.
That's a motorized vehicle.
It's a motorcycle.
It's a motorcycle or a moped, or right? They still have mopeds.
I think you're dating yourself now, Todd.
That's right.
But, that being said, the enforcement is an issue as well. And I know you've taken calls and I've taken calls about people in parks like Point Pleasant or over in at Sullivan's Pond, where people are running people off of walkways and things because of these things. So I think that the lanes are probably the most contentious issue, but I think there's a bigger piece to this. And I go back to if we're going to get people out of cars, and if the goal is to get people out of cars, we're putting fast ferries in at Bedford, and we're creating transit lanes that some would suggest don't necessarily work the best as they could. I think it's all one piece, and I think that we're focusing on bike lanes, but it has to be, in my opinion, a total package. We have to improve transit. We have to create everything so that people will get out of their cars. You have to make it more convenient for people not to drive than to drive to get them out of their car.
Yeah, I think transit should be a bigger focus than bike lanes because I just think it potentially can help more people or impact more people's lives. And I think that we should be focusing on transit and getting the routes down and getting it more reliable. I think that has to be a priority. Desperately needs to be a priority.
It doesn't make any sense that if it's going to take me the same amount of time to travel from point A to point B in my car or on the bus, well, what are you going to take? Yeah. Right? You're much more comfortable in your own car. Sure. Right? Yeah. Expenses aside, insurance and gas and aggravation. Yeah. You're going to take your car. At least I'm going to take my car.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the bus, because why would I want to subject myself to sitting on the bus when I could be in my comfortable air-conditioned vehicle?
Yeah, that's right. All right, before I let you go, what about Mitch Marner? My gosh, hey, he's gone.
Well, we've been calling for it for how long now, right?
Yeah.
And I can't say I'm surprised. I was surprised at the way that it happened. This sign and trade deal. I think it's $96 million to go to Vegas. I'm glad as a Maple Leaf fan to see him go to the Western Conference.
Yeah, for sure.
As opposed to have to play him like in Tampa or something all the time. I think that Mitch will do well out there. Mm-hmm. I think that they love the Golden Knights in Las Vegas. There is no doubt, but it's not Toronto.
That's right.
So I think that getting that gargantuan spotlight off of him, not to make excuses for him. I mean, he's a 100-point guy.
Yeah.
But to get that spotlight off of him and that is Toronto, I think will probably be good for him. The Maple Leafs, I haven't seen anything that's going to make me go like, holy smokes. There's a cup-winning team, right? Mm-hmm. But it's still early.
And they did get something back from Vegas.
They did.
Yeah.
But Treliving said, the GM, Brad Treliving, said yesterday that he is not going to make a splash in free agency. He wants to build his, because of the prices. The prices are just so high, right? Yeah. He said that he wants to improve the team through the trade route. So he's going to work the phones hard to get something for the Maple Leafs via trade as opposed to try and find somebody that's on the free agent market.
All right, Dan, thanks for the chat. Thanks for sitting in.
Hey,
I feel up to date now.
It's wild to be on this side. After I told everybody that you were back in you are in the big chair. I'm just in the little chair today.
There you go. Thanks, Dan.
Hi, man.
All right, Dan Alstrand. And thanks to Dan Alstrand, doing a great job sitting in on Monday. Valley firefighters urge caution after charging e-bike leads to house fire. That when we come back. All right, I saw this story on the CBC website. An Annapolis Valley Fire Department is urging the public to leave firefighting to the professionals after an electric bike caught fire in a White Rock, Nova Scotia basement and 2 people suffered smoke inhalation trying to remove the bike and get the fire under control themselves. Joining me to talk about all of this is Greenwich Fire Department Chief Jason Ripley. Chief Ripley, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it, of course.
Happy to be here.
All right, so again, I'll just tee up this story for those just tuning in. I read it on the CBC website recently. An Annapolis Valley Fire Department is urging the public to leave firefighting to the professionals after an electric bike caught fire in a White Rock, Nova Scotia basement. 2 people suffered smoke inhalation trying to remove the bike and get the fire under control themselves. So your advice is, when it comes to these types of fires, is leave it to the professionals, right?
Well, any type of fire, really. If you have a fire in your home, our advice is to, if it can't be controlled very quickly, like something on a stovetop by putting a lid over top of it or quickly getting it out, that you need to just get out, call 911 and stay out. The risks are just too high to not have proper PPE on, and fires can grow a lot quicker than people probably realize in their home.
All right, tell us about the risk associated with fires and e-bikes or these types of vehicles.
So with e-bikes and scooters, these are sort of an emerging technology the last 4 or 5 years that's becoming quite a bit more popular. But with that, we've at least colloquially seen an increase in the fires related to charging these devices. So Canada doesn't really have any firm national reporting framework for these sorts of fires, but looking at major cities, Toronto, Vancouver, seeing increases in these fires year over year between 20 and 50%. So it's definitely, with the number of them that are out there, we're seeing an increase in fires related to charging.
Okay, and how difficult is it to put these out compared to, I guess, a traditional fire? Is it more challenging?
So in terms of, an e-bike, it's a fairly small battery module, but in the same way with electric vehicles, they take a lot more water to extinguish than a traditional fire involving an internal combustion engine, just because of the way they're designed and built, that you can't easily access the battery cells to put them out. And the way they burn and the chemicals that are put off are significantly more dangerous than the average fire. They also produce, as a byproduct, hydrogen gas, which can be explosive.
Okay, so how concerning is this, or how concerned should people be, and what precautions can they take?
Well, first of all, buying a product from a recognized dealer is a good first step, because there are CSA standards on these types of products that if you were to buy them from a retailer, they would likely have that CSA stamp on them. In the incident that we had, this was a conversion kit bought online where these standards aren't necessarily followed. The product in question came from China, and they don't meet those same standards. So those are some of the products we're seeing more issues with, are these ones that are not regulated because they're bought in the online marketplace. So there might be pricing advantages, but there's also risks that come with that deal.
Okay, so where it's manufactured is important. China concerns perhaps because of standards?
Well, I would look for that CSA logo on anything that you buy in general. So when you're buying stuff on Temu or these online retailers, you got to be very careful about reading the details and what you're actually buying. I know they do offer a pricing advantage, and people are always looking for a deal these days, especially with the cost of living. But there's risks that come with buying products that don't meet standards.
Okay, and charge outside if possible. Is that correct?
Well, we did see some comments from people who live in apartment buildings and things that they've got no place to charge them. But really, the risks that can come with it, and basically what happens is there's these the battery modules that run these things are made up of a series of battery cells that kind of look like a AA battery, and one of them starts to overheat, and then it goes into a cascading failure called a thermal runaway, and the next thing you've got a very fast-burning hot fire. So definitely always be present when these things are being charged. If it's possible, charge them outside, whether that's in a garage or somewhere that's got a shelter. Obviously, you don't want to get wet while it's charging either. But if at all possible, don't charge them in the home the same way as you wouldn't go gas up your car in the middle of your living space in your home. We'd recommend you don't charge these things inside the living space of your home.
I've heard statistically speaking, they're compared to the gas-fired or internal combustion engines, fires are much more rare with these types of engines. Is that true or no?
I think the jury is still out on, whether one has a greater fire risk than the other. One's a very new and emerging technology, and the proportion of, electric vehicles and electric scooters is still relatively small compared to the number of internal combustion engines out there. So I think the jury's still out on whether one is more risky than the other. I think time will tell, but the best advice that we can give people is to be very careful about charging these things. Keep combustibles away from them. Charge them on a flat surface. If you absolutely had to charge them indoors, don't charge them between you and your path of egress. And if you have a fire, call 911 immediately and let the professionals handle that. And the other thing is with installing EV chargers or phase 2 level chargers for these e-bikes or scooters, if you're going to put one in your home, please have it done by a qualified electrician. There's also a number of reports out there of people doing it themselves, and that's leading to some issues with the chargers being improperly installed and wired as well.
Chief Ripley, always appreciate it. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thanks. You have a great day.
All right, take care. That's Greenwich Fire Department Chief Jason Ripley. Canada canceled its digital service tax. What was it and why did the U.S. hate it? We'll talk about the politics behind all this when we come back. All right, joining us for a chat is Laurie Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. Laurie Turnbull, thanks for joining the show. As always, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's pretty slow right now when it comes to politics. Not a lot to talk about besides the fact that we've got a pretty big issue going on when it comes to trade and a trade deal, and the pressure is on when it comes to Mark Carney here. The Prime Minister says Canada and the U.S. are aiming to get a trade deal done within the next 3 weeks. Trade negotiations recently continued after Carney dropped its digital service tax. The U.S. briefly suspended the talks and threatened to impose more tariffs over the tax. The tax would have left major American companies like Google, Meta, and Uber with $2 billion U.S. bill at the start of the week. So how would you describe this? Anything less than a climb down?
I think we always saw this coming. I think they knew that Trump was upset about the digital services tax. Even Biden was upset about the digital services tax. And so I think this was something that would be anticipated as a move that Canada could make to show a concession. And this one is not a big deal. Not to me anyway. I mean, $2 billion a year, it's not nothing. Yeah. But in the grand scheme of things, given the size of the budget, given the implications of the trade war and the tariff war with the United States, $2 billion is not something to go to the wall over. And this wasn't Carney's tax. This was from a time when Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland were running the country, and they wanted to make big tech pay their fair share. And I don't think they really won that fight with big tech. And it's a bigger issue than that, right? Like the effects that these huge tech companies have on local media, on, ability to build communities, all kinds of things. A tax isn't going to fix that. So I don't know. I don't see it as a climb down at all, actually. I see it as like, yep, this is not something we were going to be able to keep on the menu, given everything.
So politically, might they have been proactive and ditched it before now instead of making it seem like Trump forced them to do so?
Well, I guess it depends on the way you look at it. Like for me, for Trump to be able to come back to the U.S. and say, I forced them to back down on this, I protected our tech companies, blah, blah, blah. He sees this as a win. He says Carney caved, or at least his press secretary says Carney caved. It's not a bad thing for us for Trump to feel like he's winning, because this is more of an ego management thing, I think, than anything else. And so if he puts it in the win column, we can say, look, yeah, we made a concession on the digital services tax. So now what are you going to do, right? Like, I think putting it in this part of the negotiation, give it up in response to his complaints as opposed to give it up proactively and not get any credit for it, I'm okay with that.
What leverage do we have?
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, God. Like, July 21 is not too far away.
Right.
I think the ultimate leverage is going to come down to the fact that, yes, they do need us, right? They do need our steel and aluminum. They do need our lumber. We had these arrangements in place for years and years and years for a reason. And he likes to say that the U.S. doesn't need anybody. He wouldn't want us to be the 51st state if he didn't need us for something. Like, he can see the interconnectedness of the supply chain, water, Northwest Passage, like all the kinds of reasons that he wants us to be the 51st state are the things that give us leverage. It's just that I don't know I don't know what can be done to talk him out of tariffs. He says he's a tariff guy. I don't think he's going to back down on that stuff. It's just a question of whether we can get some kind of an understanding from him that the relationship with Canada is different. Tariff someone else if you're going to be tariffed, but don't tariff us. It's not a good idea.
All right. So, what might constitute a win for Canada if you're Mark Carney and a deal? What might a deal look like that he would be happy to roll out and to present to Canadians? What do you think that deal looks like?
I think that ultimately, in an ideal world, it would be no tariffs, but I don't know how possible that is. Yeah. I think significantly lower tariffs, to the point that it's, they're low enough that they can be offset by other things. And that's going to be complicated because some industries are going to be more affected by some than others, right? Like steel and aluminum is just getting slammed with these 50% tariffs. That's too much to be offset by anything else. But if we brought everything down to like 5 or 10% tariffs and then found other ways to offset some of those disruptions, like maybe that's some kind of progress. But I think he needs something to put in the window that's concrete by July 21st, or else Carney's going to go through with the measures that he was suggesting on trying to do things to protect steel and aluminum, and that's going to make Trump mad. And so there's a window here where if we can get something accomplished, it'll be a whole lot better.
How about supply management? Is that up for debate, or is that sacrosanct here in Canada?
So Trump hates that, and he deeply wants to blow a hole in supply management, and I think that Carney is absolutely not going to do that. I know some people think he will. I think there's a better chance that Carney would try to figure out how we could join the European Union than give up supply management. I just think it's one of the things that holds the country together. Not everybody likes it. Definitely, I get it, but I think that in terms of what that industry has pushed for in terms of protections and the importance of that protection to various constituencies in the country, obviously Quebec, I just don't think that Carney is going to mess with that at this point. And I also think, like, there are some people who are saying, look, we back down on the digital services tax and we look like we're being pushed around by Trump. Okay, but digital services tax is not a big component for Canada. That's not a big thing for everybody, right? Like that, yeah, sure, it'd be nice to get that money. And yes, big tech should pay their fair share, but that's not a big thing in Canadian politics. Supply management is a massive issue.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing. That's not comparable to a digital services tax. That's something that would be changing the ties that bind the country. And so Carney is not going to do that in response to threats from Trump. That's when we start looking like the 51st state.
Okay, so how, if that's the hill that he's willing to die on, how bad might that get if Trump says, look, this is a non-starter, this has to go, or we're going to move forward with tariffs and be very punitive with tariffs? What might possibly be, I mean, every deal's got its breaking point, right? I guess is what I'm getting at here.
Exactly, right? And so then what other levers do we have with respect to oil and gas, for example? If we, Ford has been much more forthcoming than, say, Premier Ford in Ontario has been much more forthcoming than, like, Daniel Smith in Alberta, for example, about saying we are going to cut off the supply of things. Smith has not wanted to do that. But do we get to a point where if they want to play that kind of hardball, do we say, okay, well, fine, right? Like we stop flowing that kind of stuff your way, right? Like, and we stop doing the kinds of things and sending the kinds of things that the U.S. economy actually does really need. It's not possible for them to completely redo these supply chains overnight and act like Canada doesn't play a role. But those are the types of things that start burning bridges, right? Like we're going to shut off the flow of oil. That starts to create, the types of things that it's going to be hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube at some point.
Yeah. And it might be that Trump just loves chaos and doesn't want to deal when all is said and done. Perhaps he will always keep a state of flux and chaos with us when it comes to trade. Yeah,
because A, that's, I think, the way he's built psychologically. And B, Canada's not at the top of his list. Like we are worried about this as a front and center problem, and this is pushing the agenda for serious economic transformation, which all in all may not be a bad thing. I think there's lots of reasons to point to this and say, hey, a lot of this stuff we should have done anyway. And if Canada's going to be a world energy superpower, that's great. And if we're going to get involved in rearm Europe, that was good anyway. And it's great to continue to build ties with European countries. All good. But I think when it comes to like this right now, we are focused on this as our key issue, and Trump is a lot more interested in what's going on in the Middle East than he is in what's going on with Canada.
Absolutely. Okay, let's quickly shift gears and talk about the fact that Pierre Poilievre is getting his by-election August 18th, and it looks like he'll be back in the House of Commons for the fall session. What are your thoughts on Poilievre and his relevance or lack thereof, according to some right now?
Yeah. Okay. So this has not been easy for Poilievre at all, obviously. He was, as we know, he was totally on track to win this election. He was going to be prime minister, blah, blah, blah. And then everything changed, and Trump decided to go with the tariffs, and then Carney comes in, and Poilievre loses. Not only loses the election, but loses his seat. I totally get the point around, yes, but the party won more seats than they had before, won a bigger share of the popular vote. So he's in this kind of weird limbo where he actually did really well, but he didn't win. And the whole process of him having to go get a seat somewhere else, that bothers me. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
I'm like, dude, you lost. And that matters. And the spectacle and the optics of, okay, I lost that, so now I'm going to run in the safest conservative riding in the country just because I know I'll win. It just smacks of a kind of entitlement, right? Like I'm entitled to a seat in the House of Commons, and that riding didn't give me one, so I'm going to go find one that will. It just strikes me as like this guy doesn't accept it, that Canada could have chosen you as the prime minister and they didn't, and you lost your seat in the riding too. Now that said, he'll win the seat in the by-election. He'll pass a leadership review in January. I think the time is going to tell whether he stays on as leader much beyond that, because his numbers are awful now. And if they keep going like that, the party's going to have to explain to themselves why they're sticking with the guy if Carney's numbers keep going up and Poilievre stay where they are. Now, I don't know if that will happen. Maybe he'll get in the House of Commons and he'll find a way of connecting with people on how he holds Carney to account, and he'll be able to make a different case to the public, and maybe that's all going to be good. But right now, he's going to have to spend the summer campaigning in Alberta because he lost a seat in Ottawa.
Okay, Laurie, always great. Appreciate your time, and we'll do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Bye.
All right, take care. Laurie Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. When we come back and chat with NDP leader Claudia Chender, we will be back. All right, joining us for a chat is Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP and the official opposition leader here in Nova Scotia. Claudia, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
All right, so let's talk about Happy Pad and the fact that Nova Scotia's the government is defending its $1.3 million affordable housing program that resulted in 60 leases. For those who don't know about Happy Pad and what this was all about, give everybody an overview, if you will, please.
Well, this was always a investment that was doomed to fail, and we said so at the time. So it's Happy Pad is a tech company essentially that purports to connect people with empty rooms in homes, so people can put a home share on there and connect with a place to live. I mean, if it worked, it should have worked. It probably didn't need $1 million from the government, but it didn't really work. It was an absurd amount of money per lease signed. When, at the time that it was signed, right up until today, we continued to advocate for the government to actually invest in real sustainable housing solutions that'll address the housing needs of so many Nova Scotians. Housing is the biggest driver of costs for families and people across this province. It's not really getting better unless you make a very comfortable living. And this is just an example of one of the many approaches that this government has taken that has not really made a dent for the people that need it.
Okay, what was the money to be used for? What was the $1.3 million for Happy Pad? How was it intended to improve people's access to housing?
Well, presumably it would have subsidized some of that. To be honest, I'm not sure what the contract looked like. Mm-hmm. I think they were trying to get Happy Pad kind of off the ground and spur adoption of that platform. But look, I mean, the original home sharing platform is Airbnb, and they're doing just fine. They're very profitable. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure why we're going to subsidize a company like that as opposed to investing in, there's tons of non-market housing providers and people who are accessing government programs to preserve existing affordable housing, who I'm sure could have used that investment in ways that could have created sustainable, affordable rentals for folks, not fixed-term leases, not rents that go up 5 or 8 or 10 or 15% every year, but places that people can afford to live, because that's what Nova Scotians are telling us, Todd. They need places that they can afford to live, particularly younger folks and families and seniors who aren't downsizing. A lot of the story behind Happy Pad was, well, you have people who are living in homes with extra rooms. You have people who need homes. You can connect those people. And on the face of it, that makes sense. But a lot of the reason that people are living in those homes with extra rooms is because they can't afford to downsize. So they can't buy an expensive condo. There were, at a certain time they'd rent. That's what, they'd go to their accountant and say, what do I do? And they would say, oh, well, you should sell your home and you should rent a place. But now, because it's hard to find a place to rent, the places are extraordinarily expensive. And because you don't have any certainty when you're on a fixed income, if your rent's going to go up every year, people can't afford to downsize. So let's address the actual problem. Let's make sure that family homes are available to families at a price they can afford. And let's make sure that seniors have places that they can live that are safe and stable and secure and affordable. There are lots of things we can do to make meaningful differences in housing. Happy Pad was never one of them.
Okay, what are some of those things? I'm assuming rent control is something that you've been an advocate for. That remains the case, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I think look, the rent cap doesn't exist really. A fraction of people who have stayed in their unit since the rent cap came in and had long leases, and a few others are captured under that. But for everyone else, we have in Halifax and HRM in particular, rents are rising the fastest in the country, Todd. And that's because we have this very, very unbalanced approach from our government. I think maybe you and I talked about, just recently it became clear that the residential tenancies department of the provincial government has been actively working with the Investment Property Owners Association, giving them information and withholding that same information from Dalhousie Legal Aid and groups who are supporting tenants. Today we heard about a tenant who has been trying for 10 years to get her landlord to fix something in her apartment, but our system is so broken that she can't get it done. So we know what the answer is. We need to, tie the increase of rents to like CPI or an external metric. So it makes sense. Of course, people who have rental properties, their costs go up and rents are going to go up, but they should go up in a sensible way. People should know that they can live in their home for more than a year without having to move. We talk to people all the time who move every 9 to 12 months. And after 3 or 4 years, they don't want to stay here because they might not find a place to live. It keeps getting more expensive and they keep having to move. We can fix all of that. We can actually address those issues, but this government refuses to do it. We can have a tenancy enforcement unit so that people don't have to wait 10 years to get repairs. But this government refuses to do it. So there's so much possibility. And there are great organizations in our province, all across our province, from Pictou to Amherst to Yarmouth, who are building affordable housing, but not at the scale that we need. And so we should leverage our public dollars to do that, to keep people here, to keep young people here, to make sure seniors have a place to retire and that families can think about a home they can afford. And right now, we're not leveraging our public dollars in that way. And people are really frustrated by the spike in the cost of housing.
With the Residential Tenancies Act itself, I mean, that could use an overhaul. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely it could. It needs, the whole residential tenancy system needs to function better. And, in the story I just mentioned about the woman who's been waiting 10 years for a repair, I think that's really what you heard from her in that story was her saying, this system is broken. And everyone more or less kind of agrees on that, whether you're a landlord or a tenant or an advocate. The Residential Tenancies Enforcement Unit that this government commissioned a report on how to bring in was supposed to be a big step forward in how to fix that. But they canned that at the 11th hour with no real explanation why. So absolutely, that act needs to be overhauled. It needs to actually work. Rent control would do that because we would go into that act and figure out a way to make it work. Landlords, and we had this in the past. We've talked about this. So, the biggest challenge we see from people around that is to say, well, what if we have extraordinary expenses? Well, if you have extraordinary expenses, you go to residential tenancies and you say, I've got to replace the roof. And I've got to cover those costs. It's the same way, that people do, landlords do that across our country in different jurisdictions that have rent controls. It just makes sense. And at the end of the day, we're going to start to talk a lot more about our economy because we're facing some tough economic headwinds and we're going to talk about costs. And if we want to be competitive, Nova Scotia needs to remain or become again an affordable place to live. That is one of our economic advantages, is our quality of life and our cost of living. And we are rapidly losing that. We're going to be in global competition for those kinds of things. So it's something this government has to pay attention to, and we'll certainly keep pushing them until they do.
Claudia, always great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
All right, take care. Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP and official opposition leader here in Nova Scotia. If you have a health-related question or concern, now is a great opportunity to get it addressed. House calls with Dr. John Gillis, The way to reach us for that is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. House calls with Dr. Gillis when we come back. All right, it's time for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a buzz. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. Okay, again, 902-405-6000. Just chatting with Vanessa just briefly. All right. So again, if you have a health-related question or concern, now is a great opportunity to get it addressed to do his best is Dr. John Gillis. Again, lots of experience and always willing to give you a hand if possible. Dr. John Gillis, welcome to the show as always, my friend. Appreciate it.
Good day. How's it going?
Not bad at all. What are you doing to avoid the heat these days?
Staying in the cool basement or finding an air-conditioned space. Although I don't find it. Was this one day last week? So
yeah, that's for sure. Just before we get to calls, wanted to get your take, being a massive Leaf fan, on the Mitch Marner deal. I guess we call it a deal. At least the Leafs got something back from the Golden Knights and got them as far away as they possibly could. What are your thoughts on Marner leaving Toronto after a bad ending?
LA was a little further. That's all I can say.
All right, glad to see him go, or what?
No, okay. He was a good player. I wish him well. I think it was time for him to move on. I think it was time for the team to move on, and hopefully he'll light it up, but not too much in Vegas, and they'll find someone else.
Yeah, it's a sad ending though, considering he was a Toronto boy and what could have been, right, in a way.
Yeah, you know what? And his note yesterday, was a nice one to the, fan base and to the city to say, thank you for my time here. It was enjoyable. It's too bad it didn't work out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Greg's giving us a buzz. Hello, Greg.
Hi, good morning. How are you today?
Doing well.
First off, I want to thank Dr. Gillis for the amazing work that he does at the emergency center. I was in there last week for 2 stints of 6 hours at a time. I know they're working their ass off there because they're so busy, but I really appreciate the quick diagnosis he gave me, and I'm almost cured now, so that's good. And my question is, I've recently been diagnosed with complete tears of my gluteus medius tendons, and I saw my surgeon, and he's kind of leery about doing any kind of work because he says I have underlying issues with osteoarthritis and some lower back damage. So he's not sure what to do. I was just wondering if you had any suggestions.
Well, generally speaking, the person who's looking at you, the surgeon, will give you the best advice. They've seen you, they've reviewed the case, they know what all the factors are. I would tend to defer to, where their headspace is. Therapy and trying to improve before surgery, generally speaking, is a good idea anyway. Like, nobody really wants to have surgery unless they need it. So, that's probably how I would proceed. I mean, unless you think there was, something unreasonable about, why they said you didn't need it.
Yeah, I just thought, reading on, Dr. Google, and he's talking about that certain injury, saying that physiotherapy doesn't really help once it's a complete tear, so the only thing to do is just wait for surgery. So just sort of wondering about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, tending to defer to the people to actually do the surgery. I mean, who knows more, Google or the actual surgeon who's probably done lots of these and knows when it's a good idea and, knows when it's a bad idea, I guguess is what I would say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, we do see lots of, surgeries go well most of the time, but, the job of the surgeon and the anesthesiologist as well is to say, the odds of this working are 25%, 50%, 75%. This might work well if you were healthy and didn't have lung and heart disease, but the risk of putting you under is too high. So there's a lot of factors at play, to say the least. So.
Yeah, and he was mentioning, because I'm 71 years old, that maybe it won't hold as well as somebody that was 30.
Well, that's quite relevant, right? And as I said, that there's multiple factors at play here when we look to determine if someone's a candidate for surgery, and that's certainly one of them. Now, there are 70-year-olds who are in perfect health and 50-year-olds who are in terrible shape, but it is finding that balance. So, I guess I would defer to the surgeon in this matter unless there's a compelling reason not to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
Okay, Greg, thanks for the call. Good luck.
Have a great day.
Okay, 902-405-6000. David's giving us a buzz. Hello, David.
Hi there. Yeah, a question for the doctor. I'm just wondering what you could tell me about asthma and maybe getting checked out for it. The reason I asked is maybe just over a week ago now, I had sort of what I almost thought was an angina type event. I'd been working a lot, then I went out for a longer walk and just kind of experienced a bunch of things. But I went to the hospital, got checked out. My heart was fine. They did chest x-rays and all the tests and stuff like that. Then it happened again later, although not so severe, but in this case, it's the shortness of breath, tightness of the chest, and sort of a bit of chest pain and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if that could maybe be asthma related or just what you think.
How old are you?
42.
It'd be unusual just to, turn up with asthma at 42. It's possible. Some people do get it later on. The hallmarks of asthma are a sense of wheezing, a sense of tightness, triggered by things like pollen, mold, cold air, different things. And it's usually fairly clear. Presumably, if that was the cause of your symptoms the other day, somebody, would have had to listen to your chest and determined if you were wheezing or that sort of thing. And it sounds like that was not the case. But if you have another episode, try to get it checked when it's happening and see if someone does hear that. It's possible, but, probably not the top of the list in someone who's never had asthma problems before.
Yeah, I did when I was a child, sort of exercise asthma, and then, my father did sort of have it and stuff like that. But, I mostly, it sort of would be consistent, except for I didn't really have the wheezing and stuff, although I tend to get dehydrated, and both times I was sort of, had fairly dry mouth, so I'm not sure if I would have been kind of mucusy. But, in the first case, it was sort of, I rarely do it anymore, but, I had a puff on a marijuana cigarette, and, I'm sure it's not the actual effects of the marijuana, but just ever since then, I've noticed that, I don't really like smoking anything anymore. And then the other time was I was sitting on a bus and then they stopped for a while, but the diesel fumes were coming in really heavy. And then I just sort of noticed okay, now I'm starting to just feel short of breath and stuff like that anyway. So
some people who don't have, regular asthma do have certain things that may trigger. Even if you're not an asthmatic, smoke or certain fumes or smells can sometimes trigger a bit of what we call a bronchospasm, a tightening of the airway. So it's possible that you're sensitive to certain things and it caused that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you then. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Thanks, David. Good luck.
Take care.
902-405-6000. Joy, hello.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm well. You?
I have a problem. My sister has been in, I guess they diagnosed her as dementia. And she's been in the hospital for 3 years, but the hospital she's in is not suited for her. Is there anyone you can tell me? I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I'm just trying to find out some information about what I can do to help her out.
Yeah, well, sorry to hear you're troubled by that. What do you mean it's not suited for her?
Well, she's quite active, and she plays all of her music. There's no one there to play a guitar with her, or no one to play cards, no one to talk to. Most of all, the patients that they have there are in stage 4, and I was trying to get her in a place where that's more comfortable for her so she could have the rest of her life a little bit better than what it is now. Maybe there's someone you could refer me to that would help me out.
Yeah, is she in the hospital or is she in a nursing home?
She's in a nursing home, Muscatava Harbor.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's a little different. So, the first move is to talk to whoever runs that facility and just say, I'm concerned that my sister is not in the right level of care, that she, would benefit from being around people that, are doing more things and such. Start there.
Okay.
If that's not, if you don't get anywhere there, your next move would be to talk to.
Give me any information. I don't even know if she got dementia, because she still talks, she still plays the piano, guitar, fiddle, and she carries a good conversation. I talk to her every day.
Does she make her own decisions, or does she have a power of attorney? Do you know that?
Yeah, she got her 2 children, which are not helping her out whatsoever, and they do have power of attorney. But apparently she had that made up like 9 years ago, and she never changed it.
Well, unfortunately, my dear, I think there's...
Pardon?
Yeah. You're going to have to deal with them if they are the decision makers. That, the nursing home, even though you're very much trying to help, will not give you information if you're not authorized to have it. So you may have to work with her kids to try and come up with the best solution you can for her. In the meantime, just trying to keep...
I tried that, and it don't seem to work with them. They think she's in the right place. But anyway, I thought maybe you might have, some information that you could refer me to that would help me out.
Unfortunately, the starting point is always the immediate family who have the decision-making authority, and it's very hard to go around that unless there's a compelling legal reason. That's another whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Okay, Joy.
I hope it works.
Joy, good luck.
I hope it works out for the best.
Okay, then. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Sylvain. Sylvain, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. I have obviously a question for the doctor.
Yeah.
I have shingles, which started May 20th. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to see my doctor for weeks on end. But due to our primary care, which we're lucky to have, went to the pharmacy. And they obviously gave me the prescription for shingles, the antiviral prescription, which I'm done. I'm just starting my 3rd week. And luckily, I caught it early enough where it didn't get extremely bad. But the problem is the nerve pain. I went back to the pharmacy, and because it's so extreme, and usually from what the pharmacist told me, usually it's localized in the area where the blisters are, which would be between the belly button and the spine in that area. But the nerve pain is right from my upper chest right down to my hip, and I can't wear any clothing whatsoever. It just hurts too much. I can't do anything. Just too much extreme pain, constant, seriously, 24 hours a day. They gave the pharmacist did prescribe me gabapentin, but apparently that takes 1 to 2 weeks to possibly work. I'm still waiting for that moment to happen. Do you have any recommendations? The pharmacist did say that that's not normal for the pain to be spread out so much in so many areas. I'm not really sure. Okay, your turn.
Yeah, so severe pain like that doesn't usually happen that widespread or that quickly. Sometimes it happens on an ongoing basis, but it does happen. Gabapentin works, but it is time and dose dependent. The other thing that sometimes helps is topical lidocaine, meaning freezing, but that comes in a gel form. You may want to talk to them about that. But it is a tough thing to treat. You should probably try to get into your doctor as soon as you can. It sounds like you've already tried to do that. But to get some instruction as to what's next and to adjust that gabapentin dose and such. It's a hard problem to treat. I have a few patients with post shingles neuralgia, and it's not an easy one to treat. Now it sounds like you're doing the right things, but try to get that dose of gabapentin up as much as you can tolerate, and maybe look at some topical freezing on the worst areas to see if it helps manage the pain.
Yes, at first he prescribed 900 milligrams per day, and I opted to 1,800, which I did confirm with the pharmacist that was okay. So I'm still waiting for results before I can increase it. Apparently, I can increase it up to 3,600, but I'm not much of a person for taking medications, so I'm trying as low as possible at first.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're on the right track. I mean, I generally tell people if they're not getting results to follow the path to get to the dose that works, as long as you're not having side effects. So, sounds like you're on the right track, and I hope it settles down for you. I know it's a difficult one.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay, good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for house calls to Dr. John Gillis. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. House calls continues when we come back. All right, House Calls with Dr. John Gillis continues. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Mary's giving us a call.
Radio on.
Hi, Mary.
Sorry, how are you?
I'm well.
Good. Just a question for Dr. Gillis there.
Sure.
My husband, he has carpal tunnel, and my doctor left. So our doctor left. So what does he do? Go to Emerge for a referral, or he's in really bad shape because he's been working construction 38 years. So it's really bothering him now. And she said she referred, and she said it's going to take between 3 and 5 years before he gets to see a specialist.
Yeah. Did you know who he was referred to?
She never told me who he was referred to. I was going to look it up and see how many hand specialists there is out there. But, no, she never told us because we asked her 2 or 3 times, and even before she left. So we never heard anything. I didn't think it would take that long for carpal tunnel surgery.
Yeah, it really depends on where the referral was sent, to who it was sent. Has your doctor's office closed entirely, or just that person's not there?
Yeah. She's not there no more. It was closed on the 25th of May.
And there's nobody else, there's nobody taking her place or anyone else in the office?
No, nobody could find, she couldn't find anyone. So I'm just wondering, what do you do? Do you go to Emerge and get a referral there, or what do you do, or does it just suffer with it?
Yeah, I mean, that's not ideal,
No.
But that may be your only option. The other, I guess you could try to find out, you could request your records from, they're obligated to keep the records for 7 to 10 years. So they're stored somewhere, and you should be able to access your records. But then you'd have to dig through and see where you referred, which is why I always tell people when you get referred somewhere, what we all hate the most is, who'd you get sent to? Oh, I don't remember. Oh, the guy with the brown hair, that sort of thing. And I hear that all day, every day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're trying to find out who it is. Otherwise, as you say, you may have to go to Emerge, get them to assess it and determine. Okay. Has he had testing? Like he's had the nerve testing and everything?
He did, yeah. Yeah, he does have carpal tunnel. And so she referred him. So that was like 2 years ago. And she was closing the 25th of May. So I don't know what he can do. Like, he's in the business for 38 years, and it's really awful to see him, like his thumb, his middle finger's numb, and it goes down to the arm. Like, it's really awful to see. Like, it's hard work he does. So I just want to get him in there so he can get it done and over with.
Yeah, the only other suggestion I might have is to check with the Department of Plastic Surgery at the infirmary /Dow and, see if they have them on the list. Where do you live? Where are you from?
I'm in Enfield.
Yeah, so the most likely thing is it went there, but I can't tell you that for sure. So, but you may try that.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for house calls with Dr. John Gillis. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. House calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for House Calls. Matt's giving us a call. Hello, Matt.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Great. I was looking to speak to Dr. Gillis.
Yep. Go for it.
Okay. So, hi, doctor. So I've had tension headaches for 18 months or so now. I've gone through a few treatments. Nothing's really worked. 2 months ago, a physiotherapist had suggested that my symptoms could be related to my deep neck flexor muscle, and they had given me some exercises for it. So I did those for a few weeks, and they made my symptoms way worse. So I stopped doing them, and a couple of weeks later, it went back to where I was. So physiotherapist had said, well, let's give you some really, really mild exercises to build up. I tried those, and it still aggravated my symptoms. So I'm seeing my regular doctor next week, and I'm wondering, is there any tests or stuff that I should be looking at doing? Because I don't know if this is the whole problem, but it's definitely aggravating it.
Sorry, if you don't know what's the whole problem, I'm not following you.
Tension headaches.
Okay, where did that diagnosis come from?
It originally came from a chiropractor, and then my doctor had tried some antibiotics for sinusitis, tried some muscle relaxers, put me in for psychotherapy. None of that's come up. So as far as I'm aware, that's where we're at, is it's a tension headache.
Okay, so, I mean, I don't know what test you're referring to. The easiest place to go now, I guess, is to take a step back. And if you're not getting anywhere with traditional treatment, reassess, is this some other type of headache? Is this something that needs medication, that needs different type of therapy? Have you had a CAT scan if it's been ongoing? Do you need a CAT scan of your head to make sure there's not something intracranial? Probably not, but that would be a consideration. And, just to determine what the next best approach is. Have you tried massage? Have you tried anti-inflammatories? Have you tried different medications for headaches? And just to approach it in a systematic way to see if you can get it to settle down. But I'd probably start from the drawing board if you're not getting anywhere with what you're back to the drawing board, rather, if you're not getting anywhere with what you're doing.
Okay, yeah, I've had for my brain, I've had a lot of stuff like MRIs, CTs, CAT scans, gone in for heart tests and EKGs and stuff like that. I've talked to a few doctors that have said it's not a problem with your brain or your heart.
Okay, then your focus probably needs to be just on finding the right cocktail of treatment to make you feel better. I'd start there and look at meds that you haven't tried or haven't tried in combination, along with, if there are therapies and such that help you. That's where I'd go next. Sort of explore what you haven't explored.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000. Martin, hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Hi, Dr. Gillis and Todd.
Hi.
Hi. So I've had assuming it's a virus I've had for over 3 weeks, gave me a bad cough, hard to sleep. The cough is now finally starting to go away. But also with this virus, I've plugged up my left ear. And when it first happened 3 weeks ago, I even actually got wax removed from my ears, but it still remained plugged up. I've seen the pharmacist a week ago. He gave me some ear drops, and I'm just finishing up the ear drops tomorrow, but my left ear is still plugged. Does this take longer to unplug, or should I seek a doctor at some point?
Well, I guess it depends on what's plugging it. You said you got wax removed from your ears. How was that done?
Well, I went to see an ear specialist, not an ear specialist, but someone that removes wax, because I thought that was the problem. So they removed wax, and there was some redness in there. But then my left ear still remained plugged. So I'm assuming it was because of the virus, and it's still plugged right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what you mean by plugged. Does it mean you feel like you can't hear through it, or it just feels sounds like different, or you actually someone sees something in there?
No, it's like you can't, like you're trying to equalize, and it's still like you're not able to equalize. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So the most likely thing is you still have fluid in your middle ear. So the treatment for that is either a decongestant, something like Advil Cold and Sinus, or steroid nasal spray, or perhaps both, to try and get that stuff out of there.
Oh, a decongestant.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would try. Simple things being simple.
Okay.
If you haven't already.
Yeah, well, the steroid is what he gave me right now. That doesn't seem to be doing anything. That steroid antibiotic eardrop, that doesn't seem to be doing anything.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that. I mean a nasal spray that'll get up into your back of your throat, which is connected to your middle ear. Something like Flonase, which you can actually buy over the counter. But that or sometimes in conjunction with the decongestant is the best approach.
Okay, so I don't have to go see a doctor then.
Well, I would never tell you that, but that's something you could try.
No. Okay. Yep. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Martin. Good luck. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a buzz now. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. House Calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Got some room for you as well. If you'd like to get in a question, certainly do so. Now is a good opportunity for you to get some advice from Dr. Gillis. 902-405-6000. That is the way to do it. Again, 902-405-6000. While we await a few more calls, Dr. Gillis, a couple of stories. This one I saw this morning. I thought I'd get your take on it. Nova Scotia's health system is improving its methods for early detection of sepsis, a life-threatening condition that occurs when the immune system reacts to infection by attacking the body's organs. Introduced in January of 2024, the new program offers frontline caregivers in emergency rooms new tools and training to help them determine when patients might be at risk. The reform comes after several high-profile deaths over the last 5 years, with families of deceased patients arguing their loved ones could have been saved had their infections been caught earlier. So you are obviously on the front lines of this thing. So what's your take, if you have one, on this?
Yeah, so I mean, this is meant to create criteria to identify people who have the potential to be very sick, and some of the criteria include high fever, high heart rate, low oxygen. A very good and necessary program to help us recognize early when people can be very sick and to start investigations and treatment. One caveat I will say that, I still like to look at people before we give them high-test antibiotics, because in some cases they just have a bad case of the flu that's given them a fever of 40, and if you can break their fever quickly, they don't need all the other stuff, meaning the high-test antibiotics that can lead to resistance and other infections. But generally speaking, this is a program meant to early identify and be aggressive, but still leaves the room, for health providers, physicians in the ER to say, yeah, that's been identified as on the sepsis track, but in this case, maybe it's not that, and we can adjust. But it really brings to the forefront to make sure it's looked at quickly and aggressively, which is quite important.
All right. So sepsis, what is it? Is it a virus? What exactly is sepsis?
No, sepsis is basically a state of the body where the body starts, fighting itself, really. Infection gets widespread such that it's, injuring different organs, affecting the body's ability to carry oxygen, and then the body sort of releases a lot of inflammatory, defense mechanisms, making things worse. So the idea is to try and prevent, treat an infection before it becomes systemic, before it becomes throughout the body. So if you have a kidney infection, you want to treat it before it gets into the bloodstream. If you have a skin infection, same thing. Pneumonia, same thing. So the idea of being aggressive, not all infections will spread. The majority do not get that bad, but once the cat's out of the bag, it's harder to treat. So hence the idea of early detection.
How often do people have this in your experience?
I probably see it every shift. Somebody with some degree of body-wide infection, and again, we're used to dealing with it. But this new approach has given, particularly nursing staff, the ability to track people into this protocol very quickly to get them treated. And like I said, sometimes we can say, you know what, I don't think this is something serious. We can back down, but for the people that are serious, they've gotten assessed and treated very quickly, and that's important.
Fair enough. 902-405-6000. Again, if you have a health-related question, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Another story, I wanted to get your take on this off the CTV website. Ontario is expanding its suite of publicly funded private community surgical and diagnostic centres, Premier Ford announced late last week. The province is investing $155 million over the next couple of years to create 57 new centres for MRI and CT scans and other services. Hospitals are at full capacity, but this will relieve them, Ford says. There will be 35 new centers for MRI, CT scans, and the province said will serve more than 800,000 patients over a couple of years. So when it comes to the MRIs and CTs, aside from the infrastructure and the cost of the machines themselves, you have the human resources component to it, because obviously you need expertise in doing the scans and operating these machines. So tell us about I suppose increasing the capacity and the challenges when it comes to not just getting the machinery, but also the human resources side of it as well, Dr. Gillis.
Yeah, there's a few different things. The radiologists, the doctors who read these things, seem to have, pretty decent capacity and are managing. Finding, technologists to work the machines, they're in high demand. And, in some cases, some of our imaging delays are not because we don't have, slots to put people into or radiologists to read them. We don't have the techs to keep the scanners going all the time. Even Dartmouth, it varies a little bit, but after midnight, the techs are not there; they're on call for the CT scanner. Even though that department runs 24/7 now, it's not like when I started, when it was quiet down at night and you might be able to go to sleep and you would tend to just anything trickled in, you'd hold it till the morning. Mm-hmm. It's not like that anymore. It runs constantly, but in some cases, the problem is it's a lack of ability to find techs to staff the place 24 hours a day. And look, the other problem with all of this, as I've said many times, is you can keep building, adding more machines, but if they're not used appropriately, the weight will just back up again. And that's what happened in this province, 15, 20 years ago or so, when there was only a couple MRIs in the province. Then they got placed around the province, and they became much easier to get. So they were getting ordered for things that really weren't particularly urgent or necessary. And, despite the triage process, those people may wait longer, but they're still taking up spots when they do get done. So again, back to, choosing wisely what we order. Again, I run a pain clinic. I probably ordered maybe 15 MRIs last year, the whole year. And, I'm seeing, people that are in bad shape, but, being in a lot of pain doesn't necessarily mean you need an MRI if it's not going to change management. But we see a lot of them get ordered for, first line, someone hurts their knee, someone hurts their back, let's throw in an MRI rec. The first line should be, conservative treatment, maybe an X-ray and reassessment. But unfortunately, that's not always the case.
Yeah, X-rays are somewhat limited, as you said on the show many times, right? When it comes to reading images what are the limitations of X-rays?
X-rays are really only useful, for a few major things. The obvious thing is bones, looking for fractures, that sort of thing. They can be useful, things like pneumonia. Chest X-rays can be used to diagnose pneumonia and other lung conditions, very useful and very commonly used there. Abdominal X-rays can be useful to diagnose at least the signs of blockages, constipation, and some other things, but not useful for nerves, soft tissue damage, that sort of thing, which is why we need more advanced imaging, or different imaging like ultrasound, CT, and MRI. But it is, again, trying to find, the most useful test for what you need, but not doing tests that people don't need. And someone who's, pulled a back muscle lifting something on Friday doesn't need an MRI on Monday. They need to let their back heal and to treat the problem. But again, we see a little bit too much of that.
Yeah, and patients, I'm sure, come in and request this imaging, just thinking that like you said, the general perception is that get an MRI or get a scan, and that's not. It must be difficult, I suppose, to sometimes have the conversation with some patients to talk them not out of it, but to explain why that would not be appropriate. I suppose those are difficult conversations at times, Dr. Gillis.
Yeah, it applies to multiple things. It is, you don't need this test, this imaging test. You don't need this blood test. You don't need these drugs, for the following reasons. And there's different reasons for all of that. I had a sore throat last time. Someone gave me penicillin, therefore I need penicillin this time. Well, one, I wasn't there last time. Maybe you shouldn't have given it, but maybe you should have. But in this case, you don't meet the criteria for strep throat. You don't need penicillin. People get upset with that. There's a lot of people who are, still conditioned that they need annual blood work. Even the phrase blood work annoys me. I mean, what the hell does that mean? You're not building a deck, but there's an and this stuff costs money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars in some cases, for full panels of blood, and they should be done, and people should have access to them, but not everybody needs 60 blood tests once a year just because. And again, it comes back to responsible use of our system and our resources.
Yeah, for sure. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for house calls with Dr. Gillis. Again, 902-405-6000. I think Vanessa's going to lock another caller in there. In a second, we'll get that caller on. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. All right. Here, let's talk to Donna. Hello, Donna.
Hi, that was fast.
Yeah, want to get you on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Gillis. My son is a 21-year-old former rugby player and cannot play rugby anymore because he's had shoulder issues, both shoulders, dislocations, and he's had x-rays. And he's been on the wait list for months for an MRI and was told he's potentially going to need surgery on both shoulders. It's something going on. It wasn't just the injury, his shoulders are pulled off from doing rock climbing and stuff, and it's been happening for a while. So it's just a bit of a comment on just that wait list. I mean, I could get him in Inverness Hospital for an MRI next week, but the specialist actually put him on the wait list for Truro. Months ago, he got a call out of the blue saying, "Can you be here in an hour?" It's like, no, I'm in Halifax and I'm working. And now he's back on a list because the doctor told him, who knows if you'll get seen in Halifax. So it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, and look, the wait times vary depending on the location, depending on what the problem is, what the triage level is, and it can be frustrating, and encourage people to look for different options to see if they can go elsewhere. If you think you can get them in quicker somewhere else in the province, get a referral sent there and have at her. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Now, my little bit of a frustration here is that he says he can't find the referral. Now, I know it's doctors, it's just his primary physician. We're very lucky to have a great family doctor set him up. So he had x-rays months ago. Now, where can we look for that referral? Because he's a young guy and he's like, I don't know where the referral is. Now, that just would have gone from physician to physician. He wouldn't have had a paper copy or an email of a referral, correct? Or where should we be looking for that? Because we're kind of at a loss right now.
Sorry, I lost you. Who can't find which referral?
So the referral for the MRI. So does my son just have to wait for another call, or is there somewhere we can reach out? Because I'm encouraging him to get on the My Nova Scotia Health app. Would that be on there? Is like a receipt, if you will, of a referral from one doctor to the other for the MRI?
Yeah, no, imaging referrals go from doctor to the imaging department, so it would have been sent. Exactly. You'd ask your doctor where it was sent. If someone was on a last minute list and can't make it, they don't get taken off the main list, which they shouldn't be. It's probably still in that queue. But if you want them sent somewhere else where there's a machine, the doctor needs to send another referral directly to that place.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, Donna, good luck. Take care.
Good day.
All right, Dr. John Gillis, great as always. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. That's Dr. John Gillis. It's House Calls. We do that each and every Wednesday from 11 until 12. Now it's time for you. What is on your mind today? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. I shouldn't say lots to talk about today. It's a slow news day, but hey, I'm sure we'll figure it out. 902-405-6000. I got a couple of things that have been percolating to the top of my brain. I'll share them with you and take your calls as well. You're an open hour when we come back. All right, we got some time for you. Give us a call at 902-405-6000. What is on your mind on this Wednesday? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Got lots open lines for you folks. Give us a buzz on this hot Wednesday. Again, 902-405-6000. This story kind of caught my eye, and I thought I'd throw it out there and see if somebody wants to talk about it. I got a few things in the pile here, but this one here, from bulky car phones to pocket computers, cell phones marked 40 years in Canada. That's right, folks. 40 years since the cell phone was introduced here in this country. And I would say that it has been one of the most revolutionary technology ever to exist to change people's lives in a massive way. When you think about how cell phones have changed your life, if you have lived before cell phones, which I certainly did, born in 1969, it makes you wonder, folks, how now that we've got phones, how we even survived. I mean, everything from traveling, when now GPS, everybody's got a GPS on their phone. Just about everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but just about everybody does. Before it was you had to get directions the old-fashioned way, or maps, road maps. Remember road maps? There was a certain way to fold the road maps, and I just think it's just interesting how different life is now as a result of cell phones. So the question is life better because of cell phones and being connected in the way that we are, in your opinion? And how did we? Let's go back to before cell phones. How did you get things done? Whether it be planning or organizing things or keeping touch with people or whatever. What did you do, and how has the cell phone changed all of that? And the reliance that we have on this technology now is massive. I don't even think we realize what type of reliance we have on phones and smartphones. And I guess in addition to that, is life better because of phones and cell phones and smartphones? Is society better off because of it? And what will be the next advancement? What might be the next iteration of technology that will be groundbreaking and revolutionary like the cell phone? Perhaps we can't even envision it or imagine what it is, but what do you think it might be? Something that you can talk about. Life without cell phones or life with phones, which was better? Or is that not even a reasonable comparison? Perhaps it is just what it is. I think back on not having cell phones, and life seemed certainly simpler back then, that's for sure. But I don't know if that's a net gain or a net loss. 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. You can get into that or whatever else you'd like to talk about on this Wednesday. Canada and the U.S. are aiming to get a trade deal done in less than 3 weeks. Another story. Prime Minister Mark Carney says July 21st is still the deadline after both nations restarted their trade negotiations earlier this week. U.S. President Donald Trump briefly suspended talks and threatened more tariffs over Canada's digital service tax on major American tech companies like Google and Meta. But just before it was about to take effect, Carney dropped the tax in a move he said was part of a broader trade negotiation with the United States. So what are your thoughts on this trade negotiation ongoing with Donald Trump, and Trump seems to have all the cards, folks, as he often says. And look, it seems to be true. And it's just the sheer size of the U.S. economy. So what are your expectations when it comes to negotiating with Trump and Mark Carney? Do you think that he should be playing more hardball? Is that even possible? All the tough talk and elbows up and all of that rhetoric, is that all for naught? When all is said and done, are we completely at the whim of Donald Trump and the United States at this point, and when it comes to trade? And if so, how might this all go? Because what's next? If you capitulate on the digital sales tax, which I don't think was a bad move, I think we should have seen that coming. What's next? I talked to Lori Turnbull earlier in the show, and she talked about supply management, and that being the hill to die on that Carney would not move on. But this is a major sticking point, supply management with Trump. He's brought it up many, many times, saying, of course, if there's a 400% tariff on dairy and poultry under supply management, and we know that Quebec greatly benefits from supply management. So how should we approach trade with the United States? Do we need more elbows up, per se? Or is it just going to be a charm offensive when it comes to Donald Trump and just capitulate and give in and give in? And if so, where does that end? Where does it end? 902-405-6000. We've got open lines for you folks. Give us a call. Whatever's on your mind today. Again, 902-405-6000. Ed's giving us a buzz. Hello, Ed.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm just looking for a little info here. I don't know. Maybe some of your listeners have heard about it. It's a free will for seniors. And how could if some of your listeners hear this, if they would know anything about it, if they'd phone me in and maybe throw a little info at me for it.
Are you online? Do you have access to the internet, Ed?
I'm not online.
Okay, well, this kind of ties into what I was talking about when it comes to our reliance on cell phones and all that stuff, obviously. Look, so if somebody has any information about a senior's will kit, give us a call, and I can certainly Google it during the break, and whatever I come up with, I'll share with you on the air. How's that sound?
Super great, Todd.
Okay,
Super
pal.
Great. Have a good day.
All right,
Thanks
take care.
Very much.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Again, folks, what is on your mind on this hazy day? It was pretty dark this morning coming into work at about 6:30, and it was dark. And you could feel that humidity in the air, folks. But again, we're into July now, and that's to be expected. So what is on your mind today? Again, 902-405-6000. Again, whatever you'd like to talk about. Perhaps you want to get into what's happening here locally in the municipality. Of course, bike lanes is something that garnered a lot of attention on Monday. According to Dan, who sat in for me, Sean Cleary was in studio and took calls. And pretty adamant that bike lanes are the way to go, and connectivity is the key to it. Once they're contiguous, according to Sean Cleary, then tens of thousands of bicycles will be using them in the years down the road. They build it if they build it, and they will come scenario. So what are your thoughts on that, or whatever else you've got in your mind? Again, when it comes to trade and the trade deal, look, folks, this is really going to impact this country in a big-time way if we don't get a trade deal done with the United States. And what is the best approach? Is it a charm offensive, or is it elbows up and play hardball? And if you continue to capitulate like they did with the digital sales tax with Trump, what's that mean? Will he be satisfied with that, or will he never be satisfied? Will he always be looking for something else? And the unpredictable nature of Donald Trump is part of his MO, of course. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, lots of open lines for you folks. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. The open hour continues when we come back. All right, taking your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Got a couple emails from people in response to the caller asking about wills, and unfortunately, he's not online. So I'm not sure that this will certainly be helpful, but I'll read it anyway. And again, Colin send me the link. Does Nova Scotians now have a free tool to help them plan for the future and protect their financial well-being? The province has provided funding for a new Power of Attorney app developed through a partnership with the Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia. The app allows users to create a legally valid Power of Attorney, ensuring they can designate a trusted person to manage their finances and property if they become unable to do so themselves. So again, I'm not sure to the previous caller if that's going to help you because you don't have, obviously you're not online. So an app I don't think will help, but nonetheless, I would suggest that if you have a lawyer, contact your lawyer, and that'd be the best place to start, I would say. Again, if you're not online, perhaps you know somebody who is, and do some research that way. Not sure if that's a help, but nonetheless, 902-456-0000. Vanessa had something to add.
Yeah, I got a couple of callers who said that they can find a free one at the Dartmouth Memorial Gardens.
The Dartmouth Memorial Gardens?
That's right.
Free what?
Free will kit.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go. Thanks, Vanessa.
No problem.
Dartmouth Memorial Gardens. There you go. Check it out if you can get there. 902-405-6000. Let's go to the phone and talk to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Good afternoon, Todd. I hope you had a good Canada Day yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Didn't do a lot, which is okay.
Yeah, well, it's always a good day when you don't really have to do a lot.
Well, it's not that I didn't have to do a lot. I just didn't do much.
Oh, you procrastinated on some stuff.
Yeah, when you own a home, Chris, as you know, there's always things you can do.
Well, tell me about it. You're preaching to the choir on this one, especially when it's an old home like mine. But so you've been married about pretty near 6 months now, isn't it? Or?
Yep, still going strong.
Yeah, and Kelly hasn't learned, I guess, to crack that whip quite hard enough to get you to do these things on your day off.
Well, there you go. She's awful kind to me, I got to say. No complaints at all.
Probably better than you deserve.
Absolutely.
Look, this elbows up thing with Mark Carney. I called you quite a while ago, shortly after Mark Carney was elected, and you probably won't remember it, but I did say I wasn't going to make any complaints about Mark Carney. I was going to give him a fair chance to do some things or to not do some things, as the case may be, and I was not going to be partisan just because I didn't vote for him and to give him a hard time without some evidence or some history on him in that position. And I must say I'm not satisfied at all. I'm not really happy. He takes it upon himself to commit Canada to so many financial expenditures, and I realize he's the Prime Minister, but, Todd, don't you really think that it should go before Parliament when you commit $50 billion or $150 billion, $20 billion, all these big numbers he's been coming out with for various things, whether it's a good cause or not? Don't you think Parliament should be convened to vote on these big expenditures?
Well, at some point, Chris, it will because they're going to have to be budgeted, right? These are commitments, but until they come to fruition, they'll have to be budgeted, and then Parliament will vote on them, and when they manifest themselves into a budget.
Yeah, but a lot of these things, it's like going to be a done deal. We know it's going to be a done deal. It always works out that way, regardless of what party's in. But the way he behaved with Trump. He should have at least tried to get some kind of a concession, like I think Pierre Poilievre suggested the softwood lumber thing or whatever. He should have at least put the appearance on that he was trying to get something. To me, he just rolled over, knuckled under, and that gives Trump the message that I can do this anytime I want. I mean, he knows he's got a lot of power anyway, and he's a bully. You can't depend on him. His word is maybe good for 60 seconds, and that's it. You may change his mind again. But I really think Carney did Canada a disservice, and himself a big disservice, by not at least trying to get some kind of a deal or some kind of a tit-for-tat type of thing. And, I mean, that's the way negotiation is. And Carney's put himself out as being the great negotiator. This is not evidence of it, in my opinion. I don't know what you think, Todd. But
well, maybe he did. Maybe he did. We don't know what. I suppose we're not privy to what the negotiation looked like. Maybe he did try and get that. But softwood lumber is been a huge sticking point for a long time. And it's easy in fairness, it's easy for Pierre Poilievre to throw that out there, but it's a lot harder to execute it. I think you'd agree with that, Chris. Not to say that they shouldn't have tried, but
no, I agree with you 100%. It probably would have been impossible to get any kind of a deal from Trump, but at least to come out and try and make it evident that you tried. Because no one can fault you for trying to do something. You could go in the ring against Mike Tyson. You're not going to win. But at least if you give it your best effort, nobody can hold that against you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But can I make a quick comment on this cell phone thing you were talking about?
Yeah, go for it.
I've been using cell phones. I was in the realty business, as you know, rentals. And the cell phone was a godsend to me because I had it. It was like having your office with you in your pocket or strapped to your belt all the time. Mm-hmm. But I remember when I first started in the business, you had an answering machine at home. So because I was a small operator, so I had to go out and do maintenance and different things as well, and I had to meet my customers and that sort of thing. So I couldn't sit in the office, and I couldn't hire someone to sit in the office. It wasn't that big of an operation. So you had your answering machine, and you'd go home every night or a couple times through the day if you were close by, and you'd get your messages, and that didn't seem so good. So then you progressed up the line to an answering service. Remember when these answering and pager services used to be out there?
Yeah.
So they'd pick up your phone, and most of them are really professional, and the customer on the other end of the line would think that he actually or she actually reached your office. The girls or the guys there working at these message centers never told them the difference. So they'd take the message, then they'd give me a pager call on my beepers. We used to call them the pagers. So then when the cell phone came out, it changed my method of operation completely. Now, even to this day, I only use my cell phone. I have a flip phone, and it's a new flip phone. It's not an old one. I got it last year. But it makes a call and gets a call, and that's all I use it for. And to me, I'm old school, and a cell phone, that's all it is for me, is making a call and getting a call, keeping in touch with people that you have to keep in touch with, or to have them be able to reach me for business or whatever the case might be. Most people, I think you'll agree with this, Todd, most people, probably 99.9% of all the people out there, use their cell phone for everything. Paying bills, making arrangements for a trip, checking prices on stuff, everything. Maybe you use yours for that, Todd. I don't know, but
it's definitely a crutch. It's a massive crutch for sure.
Yeah, but when I see, and I mentioned it to my wife the other day as we were coming in from Bears Lake, every friggin' person, literally, that we saw coming down the sidewalk had their phone in their face doing something with it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's I don't know. That's just beyond me. I just can't wrap my head around that. I've got more to do in life than, and I prefer interactions with people anyway, either over the phone or face to face and whatever. That's the way I was raised, and that's the way I did business, and that's just me. But today, the people for the most part would not be able to get through the day without their cell phone.
For sure. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the call, pal.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Topher, hello.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Todd.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, the Nova Scotia Power, where they've lost our information there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I called them this morning and I had some instructions for them. They got to take care of this, getting us registered with TransUnion. You know what poor Kyle told me?
Who's Kyle?
Kyle is the customer representative for Nova Scotia Power.
Okay, yeah.
He told me that they passed the buck to TransUnion. TransUnion will not allow Nova Scotia Power to sign us all up for free credit monitoring.
Well,
I'm urging everybody to. Here's my instructions for everybody that has this fiasco with Nova Scotia Power: is to call 1-800-428-6230, 1-800-428-6230, and tell Nova Scotia Power that you would like them to handle this registration with TransUnion to monitor our.
I would assume, Topher, that it's a privacy issue as to why they can't do that, right? They can't do that on your behalf. You need to do that yourself. You need to give TransUnion you need to authorize TransUnion to do that yourself. You can't have a third party do that on your behalf. That would be my guess. Why they don't?
Well, that's their excuse, Todd.
Well, no, it's not an excuse. It's a privacy issue.
Is Nova Scotia Power going to credit compensate for trying to get myself registered with TransUnion?
Well, Topher, look, I'm just telling you what I think is the reason why. I'm the last person to defend Nova Scotia Power, believe me. But I think in this instance, I don't think that as a third party they can contact TransUnion on your behalf and give them your personal information, which they'd be required to do so to sign you up. I just don't think that legally they'd be allowed to do that. I could be wrong, Topher. I've been wrong many times before, but that's my take on this.
So Todd. And if you never made a mistake, you probably never done nothing too. But so about how smart are these smart meters on our that are metering our power? How smart are they now?
Well, yeah, I've heard a lot of people have complaints about and are suspicious that there are challenges with it for sure. But I don't know that for sure. But anecdotally, a lot of people have complained about them. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, Todd, it's just I didn't create this mess. They are the ones that created it. So they need to
listen. I hear you, Topher. It's very frustrating. It really is. But I would say that legally that they could not do that on your behalf. That's my interpretation.
These laws and seem to be a lot of people in government that in other countries in this country that don't even bother to follow the laws that even in the province that the laws. So it's so much paperwork. This situation rectified.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, I hear your frustration, Topher, but I think when it comes to the TransUnion thing, unfortunately, you're going to have to bite the bullet and contact them themselves if you want to get signed up for it. That would be my guess.
Well, I think if enough Nova Scotia Power people that have been affected by that, which is everyone that has a Nova Scotia Power bill come to their residence, calls an NSP and talks to poor Kyle and tell him that he's got to fix it. He's got to sit there and register our names.
Okay, Topher, I'm not sure where else we can go with this. I've shared my opinion on it.
Todd.
Okay, thanks, pal. Take care.
Yeah.
Good luck, bud. Take care. Vanessa, do you have something you wanted to add?
Not to the Nova Scotia Power comment, but the free will kits. I keep getting phone calls from people. So the Minister for Seniors and Long-Term Care, Barbara Adams, her office carries free will kits, as well as the Dartmouth Memorial Gardens will also deliver them to you if you need to.
Excellent. Okay, great information. Thanks, Vanessa. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks. What is on your mind today? Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. Way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Mark's giving us a buzz. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Todd. How you doing today?
I'm well, you?
Good. So I was calling about, first of all, I just wanted to say that I noticed that Lori Turnbull was talking about how Pierre lost his riding and if he should really bother or, talking about that. And I just kind of wanted to remind a lot of people that weren't aware of this longest ballot that he had to deal with, that basically he had 90 other candidates, most of them all fake, that were targeted for his riding. And I don't know why that was allowed. Apparently it was some loophole, but I think your average voter is going to think that probably looks like interference. What do you think?
Well, yeah, look, clearly it was targeted, and because I don't think it occurred in any other ballot. If it did, certainly not to that degree. And it certainly didn't help him. And look, I think that there's something to that for sure. I don't know if that's why he lost. I don't know that you could determine that he lost his riding because of it, but I think that it would be safe to say it certainly didn't help him. I'm not sure if that adds to what you're getting at all, but that's there's something there, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if that's why he lost as well. I agree, but I really hope that the message is out there that people are aware of, because I will predict it will happen again if people aren't informed about it. And I just want fair elections. I don't want all these little games or little tricks. Maybe it's impossible to get a truly fair election, but I think if people aren't aware about it, it's going to happen again. So
well, my guess is, and I think I've heard that there is going to be some of that in this by-election in Alberta, but I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to lose it. I don't think there's any chance that he loses that by-election. I think you'll see Poilievre back in the House of Commons when it convenes in the fall. I think if I had to bet anything as a sure bet, it'd be that. So, but I hear you on the long ballot thing. To me, it was. I don't know if it's unfair, but certainly it didn't help. And that's for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going to save that longest ballot for the federal one when all the cookies are on the jar kind of thing.
Okay, thanks for the call, pal.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care at 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Percy's giving us a call. Hello, Percy.
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
I got a little note about the cell phones.
Yeah.
And this was written in April the 26th, 1922. It's only a couple lines. Do you mind if I read it?
Okay.
Someday, each human individual may carry in his vest pocket his own private wireless telephone through which he can receive reliable news from various parts of the earth and communicate at will with private individuals wherever they may be. Then, too, the necessity for the phonograph will be practically eliminated. What do you think of that?
Well, it sounds prophetic for sure. What is it again? What are you referencing?
This is taken from what they call the Golden Age in April the 26th, 1922.
Interesting. Well, I'm not sure what else I can add, Percy, other than it's very interesting for sure and spot on, right?
That's right. And this is the 40th year, they said, for
cell phone. Yeah.
That is something I couldn't believe when I read that the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, Percy.
Sir.
All right, pal. Thanks. Take care. 902-405-6000. Rolly, hello.
Hi, how you? I know how you're doing. Usually, I like to listen to Tony and Chris because they make good points and they're pretty sensible fellows.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris is starting to sound like Donald Trump. The Tories got beat and they're whining about the Liberals stole the election. He got to get over it. We got to be Canadians again. We're going to fight those stupid Yankees and burn down their White House again. And he's whining because his idiot Polyev is beat. He got to get over it and grow up. He's an old dinosaur, and the Tories and their conservative policies aren't acceptable to Canadians. He's going to have to accept it and grow up.
What do you mean? What do you mean burn down their White House? You don't mean that literally, do you?
Well, the last time the Yankees started a war with us Canadians, we had to arm up and go down and burn the White House.
Yeah, well, that was...
If Donald Trump, all we'd have to have is about 200 guys that know what they're doing and just pretend we're...
Okay, Rolly. Okay, Rolly. Okay, Rolly. That is bordering... No, it doesn't border. It is surpassed ridiculous. 902-405-6000. Stephen, hello.
Hey, Todd.
Hi
I'm going to make your day.
Okay.
You're 100% correct on the privacy issues with Nova Scotia Power and the credit monitoring.
Right, yeah.
There's an act in Canada called the Personal Information Protection Act, and they cannot sign people up for things like that. And the other thing is when you sign up for services like that, one of the things that they ask you is, what is your security recovery question?
Exactly.
So how would somebody know what school you went to in elementary?
Yeah, no, you're right.
From Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah.
Those are issues that are private to you that you should know, and also constructing a password, giving a complex password. What if Nova Scotia Power creates a complex password for you? Well, they're going to have a copy of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Todd, you're when you say you assume, I've been working in security and privacy for probably, close to 30 years, and you are beyond right. You stand on the mountain of righteousness on that one.
Yeah, well, I look, I didn't want to. I always try and leave it so that I'm not the authority on things like that. But I was pretty confident, and you backed it up.
Yeah, well, you should be. There's acts and there's governance around this, and it's all around personal information and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
can you imagine the outcry if Nova Scotia Power started signing us up for things without our consent?
Remember the outcry when people started getting a ditch tax and we started getting invoices from the HRM water?
Yeah, that's right.
Who created our accounts? Well, they came from Halifax Regional, and they just simply transferred the accounts that we had for paying our taxes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And if you remember that outcry, that went on for how many years, and it's still going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in Nova Scotia Power is even worse because that was a data breach.
Yeah.
So, so I just wanted to simply say, going to make your day. You are standing on the mountain of righteousness on that one. And Chris, I'm sorry, Chris doesn't have faith in Carney, but he didn't vote for him. So, you can be impressed or unimpressed, but since you didn't vote for the guy, I don't care.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Have a great one.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Sean, hello.
Hey, Todd. Todd, I want to jump in on this, what your caller previous there had to say about Lori Turnbull there and her extreme bias is what I call it. Not only did Pierre Poilievre have the longest ballot, did you see the thing? It was 3 meters. It was almost 6 feet long, the ballot.
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and not only that, but in 2023, the federal government actually expanded his riding in an extremely liberal stronghold, you could say, and actually expanded his riding by almost double its size that he ran in the last 20 years that he won in. And then in 2023, they expanded it, and it came in, if you can look at the map at the top corner, it comes over, it takes up almost half of the map. So not only did they have the longest ballot, but they also massively expanded his territory into a strong liberal hold, right? And then she talked about it being self-righteous for him to run in Calgary. Do we not understand what Mark Carney did to get his seat? He pulled a prime minister candidate out of the position. We still haven't heard anything like that. Did he do wrong, or was he right, or what? We still haven't heard nothing about that. It was just plucked him out of there because they knew that was the strongest hold to put Mark Carney in where he could guarantee a win, right? So when it comes to that, both sides play these silly games and they blame one for another. This whole campaign, Mark Carney ran on Trump. Todd, you talked about it every day. You said to you, this is the election box question, Trump, 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 and this trade deal. And where are we getting with this? June 19th, 10 days ago, Philip Champagne there took questions from the media on the digital security tax. And he stood by it 100% and told how good it was for Canada, and this is the right direction, and we're standing by it. And 10 days later, we're here doing this. Oh, no, it's part of the deal. It's good. It's good. It's good. No, it's not good. If you I deal in business, Todd, and when you come at somebody with something and they quickly react and take away the tax within hours of you postponing the deal, that shows weakness. And Trump is a serious business. So do you think the farmers are going to stand a chance? On that Fox News interview, he didn't talk even about the digital tax. He talked about the farmers are mad at him and the farmers are getting pounded. So if you think that Mark Carney's going to be able to sustain this supply management deal, you're wrong, because that's the next thing he's coming for, and it's not going to bow good for Canada because Mark Carney, again, is going to have to bow to it and not have a choice. He's saying we got to expand into the EU. Todd, I don't know if you've been up to date on the EU, but they're crumbling. They're countries are leaving it left, right, and center. And we're going to now join it. And meanwhile, the top economist there on CNN, who was saying how bad New York Times story, how bad tariffs were for the country, it's going to corrupt, Now he's turned around and completely switched and saying this is tariffs. We were wrong. Tariffs are the best thing for our economy. Our economy's booming. We got major investments coming into the country. And for what? Lori Turnbull says Canada, they need our lumber. They don't need our lumber, Todd. They take our trees, mill the lumber, and then sell the lumber back to us. I'm in this business. We get low grade lumber because you know what? The Americans get it. Our number one grade A studs here in Canada are equivalent to the B and C grades in the States. So what? They need trees? Well, you know what? North America is covered in trees. If they only need the trees, they already have the plants to manufacture the wood. They don't need Canada for no wood.
Okay, Sean, listen. It depends entirely who you talk to and what methodology you want to believe. Because one economist that you cite, look, you can find metrics and data which would counter what you're saying when all at the end of the day.
He was the economist that CNN used. He was the economist that your news agencies are using.
Who is it? What's his name?
Guy.
Who are you talking about?
Tom. I forget his full last name. Tom something. But he was the guy, right? Like, this is the guy that everyone quoted. And now, like, that's why you don't hear it anymore, because that's why you don't hear tariffs are bad, because the economy is booming down there. They are bringing in trillions of dollars. The economy is on fire.
Anyway, okay, and Sean, listen, again,
okay.
Well, it's true because you say it's true?
No, I don't say it's true. Look into it. You'll see they're on fire.
No, listen, there are lots
gas
of...
prices are crumbling, inflation's coming down.
My. Sean, listen, it's not true. What you're saying is not true. The economy is not on fire. It is not booming. They have all types. There are lots of tons of reasons why tariffs are not effective and why they've hurt the United States. And
you can stick to that narrative, Todd, but it ain't going to change anytime soon.
All
man.
right, we'll agree to disagree. How's that sound?
For sure, buddy. Sounds good, man.
Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Look, folks, when it comes to the U.S. economy, I did a Google search just while during the break, and again, it depends exactly on what you want to punch into Google, and what I guess it depends on what you read, folks. I saw a number of things, just again quickly scrolling, and from Yahoo Finance, this one says U.S. economy on wobbly footing, why Wall Street strategists are cautious with stock market's recent records. So there's that, and I'm finding it difficult to find any data that would indicate that the U.S. economy is booming, because of tariffs, and the tariffs have been good for the U.S. economy in general. I mean, tariffs are a tax on your own people, is what it is. That's what tariffs are. It's not It's not new money. It's not found money. And the concept of free trade has been proven to lift economies out of poverty right around the world globally. In many cases, look, is it perfect? Of course not. No economy or no ideology or methodology is perfect. But Donald Trump clearly does not, at least if he does understand, he's not making it clear to the American people how tariffs work. He's been on the record of getting it wrong. Even the basic fundamentals of tariffs, saying that all these countries are going to pay the tariffs. No, they're not going to pay the tariffs. The importer pays the tariff, and the U.S. consumer pays the tariff. That's how it works. That's why some people feel as though it's foolish to have counter tariffs in Canada, because ultimately it hurts consumers here in this country. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Look, folks, I wouldn't want to be in a position to have to deal with Donald Trump. That's for sure. And I get it that there are no easy answers to this. There are none. 902-405-6000. Dawn's giving us a call. Hello, Dawn.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. You?
I just want to say thank you very much for what you do.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Because, yeah, you got people calling in all the time and hammering you, and it's not right. You're making things better. You're trying to make things better, and no one appreciates that.
Well, I appreciate that, Dawn. I do, but look, that comes with the territory, and
I know. Like, I really felt today you were very stressed. Like, you're just really, your energy is overwhelmed, and, you know, then you got everyone calling in and just, you know, making your life harder. I don't understand, like, why people do this.
Well,
you're a good.
Go ahead, Don.
You're a good person, and you're trying to make things better. And then you got callers calling in and just backlashing you all the time. It's not right, Todd. It's not right. You're a good person, and you're trying to make things better, and then you got these callers calling in, and just backlashing you all the time. I don't know how you do it.
Well, Don, listen, I appreciate the call. Thanks for the encouragement. I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Listen, folks, I certainly don't look for any sympathy or empathy. If people feel that way, that's all good. But look, it comes with the territory. If you're going to host a show and you're going to share your opinions, and then people are going to call with theirs, and I welcome that. That's part of the dialogue. That's part of the back and forth, folks. And again, nobody is going to sit in this chair and do this job and not expect to get backlash, because that's the nature of the job, and that's okay. Like I said, do I prefer if people agree with me? Sure, everybody would prefer that, but that's not the reality. Here's a quick email. Thank you, Don, by the way, for your comments. Here's a quick email from Carl. Carl says, folks who are obsessed and love Poilievre have similar traits to those who love and are obsessed with the Maple Leafs. They both avoid reality, looking for any excuses why both lost. Both the politician and the hockey team lost and can be considered the losers versus the winners. Best to accept reality and move on. So when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, folks, look, he is going to obviously win this by-election in August. August is when it's coming up, and he'll be back in the House of Commons. And that's what the Conservatives want. He's their leader. He's the guy. So again, he is a skilled parliamentarian, that's for sure, and that's where he does his most effective work, in the House of Commons. And look, he'll win that election. And to Sean's point and other callers' points, the Liberals play the same games when it comes to cherry-picking ridings and playing the political games. Sure. That's not unique to the Conservatives, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for all the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Den Ness on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. We are back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See you then.